Well, Americans across the country are celebrating Juneteenth today, commemorating the day in 1865 when the last enslaved people found out that they were free. In Texas, on June 19th, 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued, which proclaimed that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are and henceforward shall be free. Now, Juneteenth being recognized in at least 28 states as a federal holiday. A new museum in Charleston, South Carolina, is helping to explore the history, culture, and impact of the African-American journey on that city, the nation, and of course, the world. The museum is right there at the site of Gadsden's Wharf, which was once the biggest slave ports in America. The president and CEO of the International African-American Museum, Tanya Matthews, joins me now. Tanya, great to see you.
Good to see you, too. Thank you for having me. Happy Juneteenth.
Hey, happy Juneteenth to you. You know, this is one of my favorite places in the country, by the way. Our older daughter went to school there. We spent a lot of time in Charleston. It's an amazing place, a cultural place. And just, I mean, beginning with Juneteenth, you know, now a federal holiday in most of the states. What does that mean for you, for Black families across the U.S., and just the fact that we can all connect and celebrate in a very special way?
You know, I grew up in a household that loved holidays and loved to invite guests and other people to celebrate our holidays with us. And to have Juneteenth added to the list of celebrations where we can share culture and stories and food, I think is just amazing. And I think it does represent a turning point, which is if we embrace and talk through these stories, there are moments to celebrate for all of us included, and have some really good food alongside it.
Yes, we'll never argue against that. All right, well, let's take all that into account here and your stories and talk about the museum now and how it's disrupting institutionalized racism. Tell me more.
So the International African American Museum has been 23 years in the making, or perhaps 400 and some years in the making, depending on how you're counting. We are definitely built right here at the site of Gadsden's Wharf, and we're unearthing and telling these stories, but we do history through storytelling, personal stories. We have a genealogy center, oral history, community memory stories. We have an entire gallery devoted to the Gullah Geechee community, African-American community that has held on such rich ties to our relationships with West Africa. We also talk about the origins of things that folks see and are familiar, such as shrimp and grits, red rice, all of these kinds of things. And I think that the way to sort of disrupt our norms is frankly to sit down person to person, family to family, and share stories, share pictures, share images that bring us together and allow us to work through the tough stuff together, as well as celebrating the good stuff together as well.
Right. Many times we need to feel uncomfortable to get comfortable, right? I mean, that's what awakens us. You know, as you mentioned, the museum sits right, we talked about how the museum sits right there on the plot of what was once, you know, one of the biggest slave ports in America. I mean, Tanya, that sends a really powerful message.
You know, it really does. And I think one of the things that we do really well here is we put this period of slavery and enslavement in its full context. The museum timeline goes all the way back to 300 BCE and all the way to modern times. And so we talk about this challenging time with truth, but we're sure to remind folks it's in the middle of the African-American journey, not the beginning or the end. And I really like your comment about getting a little bit uncomfortable. You know, when you can get uncomfortable together, that's actually how you create a community. Right? Everyone sort of pulling together, trying to grapple with our relationship with these stories. But it's about the African-American journey that simultaneously holds the sensations of trauma and joy. Not trauma in the beginning of the book and joy in the back of the book. It's constantly woven in together. And the museum is working really hard to make sure that folks experience everything about our stories.
So, Tanya, you know, when the African-American Museum opened up here as part of the Smithsonian in our nation's capital, right, probably one of the most impactful exhibits within there and stories is that of Emmett Till. And it does. It makes you very uncomfortable, but that's what people need to see. That's what his mom wanted people to see, that open casket, right? What do you think? I know there's probably a handful of things that you could bring up, but what's something do you think within the museum is going to be one of those unique moments when people come and they sit down and they gather? What's the first thing you think of that you know it's going to make people think a lot?
I think one of the most unique moments that's really going to draw folks into thinking at the museum is our two smallest galleries, the port of departure and the port of arrival. And they're both very simple, small galleries that have nothing on the walls but names. And the port of departure has the names of Africans who were enslaved alongside their ages. They go as low as 4 years old. And then there's the port of arrival. Again, nothing but names. And these are names that were taken from actual plantation records here in the Low Country. And I think being able to take that big number, 12 million, hundreds of thousands, down to individual names is really what I think gives us pause and allows us to remember we are talking about people. And in between those two galleries is a spectacular view of the Atlantic Ocean, pointing right to the place where the ships came in and dropped folks off. And so those two galleries connected by that view of that port of us, I think is one of the most poignant moments inside the museum.
Tanya Matthews, I cannot wait to visit. Appreciate you and your time so much today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.